4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. Best of the best is who I bring to you show after show, and today is not any different. The associate broker in the studio today is making waves in Northeast Florida. She has been recognized as a top agent, considered one of the top 10 agents in Florida. She's a nominee for the 30 Under 30 Associate Brokers in Realtor Magazine. But above all, she is a spearhead for the Homes for Heroes program locally here as a daughter of a naval aviator. Graduated from Florida State University in 2014. Go Noles. She's an associate broker with Navy to Navy Homes and CEO of the Jordan Group Jax. Let us welcome Bailey Jordan to the show. Bailey, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I am so excited and so honored to be here today.
Thank you. I was so glad we could get you here pinned down because you were away on a little excursion.
Yes,
out in Arizona.
I was recently out in Arizona. I got invited as a top producer to kind of go out there with some other top producing female real estate agents to kind of mastermind, recharge, share ideas. So just got back from that about 2 weeks ago, and it was an awesome opportunity.
Was something larger than Navy to Navy? Was that a larger?
Yeah, it was not. It was women from all different brokerages, which is really, really awesome. You know, to be able to share ideas, not just within kind of, Navy to Navy.
Right.
It's really sometimes hard in this industry to get people to talk if they're not on the same team, right?
Right.
So it was from different ladies from all across the U.S. and all different brokerages.
Yeah, it's funny you mention it. Months ago when I started researching and starting the podcast and so forth, I've become a podcast junkie. And I do listen to Massive Agent podcast. He's out of EXP, out of Salt Lake City. And one of the things he said really puts on, because he'll have interviews, but then he also has what they call solo shows, where he goes on his little rant, so to speak. But he's right on a lot of times. And it's talking about a lot of realtors don't want to talk to each other because they think they're competition.
Exactly.
And it's really not. It's a team play. You're bringing one client to the table, they're bringing another client to the table, listing, buying, whatever it may be, and you got to work together. And it's not, it's competition because you're out there, but not everybody knows everybody.
Exactly. I can't service everyone that wants to move to Jacksonville,
Right.
And I think it's so important to build relationships. That's a big facet of my business, is building relationships and those referral networks across the U.S. and just being there for each other, because this industry can be very emotional at times.
Yes.
And very draining, and so you want to have those relationships that you can lean on and say, hey, what's working for you? Hey, what's not working? Hey, I'm struggling in this. Can you help me? And just have kind of, those relationships to bounce off of.
Right, exactly. I mean, I'm totally on board. My other guest was saying the same thing, and we were talking about getting involved in the different events, even if it's just a social. Mm-hmm. Sometimes to go out and do some. I have other agent friends who say, well, there's no one there going to buy a home from me, so I don't want to go. But
exactly.
You don't know who's going to be on the other side of that transaction.
Right.
And especially in the market right now,
it's so
hopefully
important.
you have a friend on that other side of that
Exactly.
transaction. You're making that offer that might put yours on top.
That actually is one of the reasons why I am, super involved with our local board, NEFAR, because I think it's important, one, to give back, to the board that has given me so much, and to build the relationships again, just here locally as well and abroad. But it's important. It's so much more than just selling homes and how many homes to sell a year. I'm a huge advocate for getting involved, giving back, and building, a community of relationships.
Game on. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here today. All right. So let's get back to my normal routine, and let's learn a little bit about you. You're a Jacksonville native, as I was reading on your bio a little bit.
Kind of. So I've been here since 2006. So I was originally born in the Panhandle, Pensacola, Florida, and I was a military brat growing up. So moved around a couple of places, and then our last stop was here in Jacksonville. And we were able to stay here for a couple of consecutive years, and then I went off to college, Florida State, and then I came back and was here and planning my wedding for about 6 months before we got married. And my husband is born and raised in Jacksonville, so that is where
he went to Florida State as well. Is that
he did not. No,
okay.
He's a little bit older, so we did a little bit of a long distance relationship. Made it work. I graduated early in 3 years and came home and have been here since. Great.
Because you dove right into real estate from what I saw in your bio. It seemed like very young. What was your connection there? Did you have family in real estate?
So I had moved home. I graduated December 2013 from FSU, and our wedding date was in June. So I was looking for something that I could do within those 6 months. As actually my intent was to go on to grad school,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was actually actively applying to grad schools and wanted a little part-time job. So I actually started at Navy to Navy as our admin assistant, and so for those 6 months, I was answering phones, overseeing work orders for our property management division, just doing all of the admin things.
Right.
And in that time, I was meeting our realtors, filing those commission checks, and I was like, I think I want to maybe go for this. So I was encouraged,
Right.
and I started studying. I took the in-person class, so I dedicated the next 7 days, took out of my admin job,
Right.
and got licensed, and I became officially licensed in July of 14.
Wow.
And I really kind of got my feet wet. And
Sure.
then after a while, I transitioned out of that. I actually took on a role, which I still am active in as part of our property management division, and then jumped into full-time sales as well. And I started to do well kind of fast. And so I kind of put grad school on the back burner
Sure.
because I was just really enjoying what I was doing. So in college, I studied psychology, family and child sciences. I wanted to go on and open a marriage and family counseling business. And I kind of learned, like, hey, I'm actually kind of counseling these people, right?
You are. You are,
and
for
these
sure.
days, sometimes I really feel like a therapist.
Yeah.
But my husband at the time had accepted a job at the Mayo Clinic. And so for me to go to grad school, number one was actually in Valdosta, Georgia. So I wasn't going to commute as a newlywed to Valdosta every day. And since he had just taken on that role, we weren't going to move there. So I just was like, I'm just going to dedicate, my full time to real estate.
Sure.
And here I am 7 years later and have never thought about grad school since.
So while you were talking there, two things just came to my mind. And I was literally, this happens all the time when I'm talking to somebody, because this just brings some interesting stories. There's two podcasts out there right now that I've come across. That I hadn't listened to one of them. The one of them is that he uses a different word, but the stuff you don't learn in college, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's you've already got your grad degree and make more than probably the average one does. And then the other one was she has something, real estate therapist or whatever. She's out of DC. I was just listening to the podcast this morning, this morning, and she was being interviewed on a podcast, and that was what she advertises herself as, the therapist.
Yeah.
She's the realtor therapist, to talk to everyone's,
We very much are therapists. And I think, too, because I studied psychology, I specifically took personality classes in college, so I feel like that's kind of helped me also, because I can be like, okay, this is like the vibe, and this is how I'm reading this, and this is like how these people like to be interacted with, because we are all so different, so many different personalities. And that even ties in back to what we were talking about in the beginning, is building those relationships. You may have a customer and you're just not vibing with them, so maybe you want to refer them out to another agent that would work better with them instead of losing them completely. But I do feel like some of my college experience has really helped me, especially in today's times, because it's craziness out there and personalities are all over the place.
That was actually one of my, because wasn't it communications is what you studied?
No, psychology.
Psychology? What psychology? Oh no. It made me think of how one of the standard questions. Hey, that's what your degree was. How did you turn it into this? But as a very young person, though, getting started, because you're obviously out there interacting with people 23, 24 years old right at this time when you started. Did you find it a little bit of a challenge? Because you haven't actually experienced those life experiences.
I definitely
did.
I know I was so nervous. I was having this conversation the other day. I look back at like one of my biggest deals I had, my second full year in the business, and I was like, wow, I don't even know how I ever got that to the closing table, because they were, they asked, I remember them asking a lot of questions, and I've always been kind of that person that if I don't know the answer, I'm okay with saying, that's a great question, let me find out for you.
Yeah.
So I just, I really just had to push through. I also am a huge advocate of education. So I'm very thankful for what our local board NEFAR offers,
Yes.
and I made it a point each month as a new agent to be inside the classroom taking one class a month to just learn, because I knew, like, I didn't know anything. And the real estate course doesn't teach you real estate. It teaches you how to stay out of real estate jail, not like how
exactly.
not to, where to get customers and what if this comes up in a transaction. Right. So I wanted to make sure, I was the best, I was giving my customers the very best that
Sure.
I could.
Sure. I'm going to get back on track here. My family, my wife's side's a long history of Florida State grads. My wife's a Florida State grad. Her sister, brother-in-law, mom, they're all,
nice.
Yeah. So I got to hear that all the time.
All the time.
I really wasn't I grew up in the Northeast, so I wasn't I was more pro football and that sort of thing, but
well, at least you're not a fan of that school, down in Gainesville.
That's well.
Oh boy.
I am a fan of one particular person, and knowing just a little bit about you and some of the things you have said, I think you have some respect for Mr. Tebow.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I have no bad words to say about
yeah.
Mr.
Tebow. He does put out and do some great things. There's no doubt about it. Tell us about your first deal.
Oh, goodness. So it took me about 6 months to get my first deal, and ironically enough, it was actually a referral from another agent in my office. They had been working with these buyers, and they were just exhausting them. And so, again, as I mentioned earlier, I was a new agent. I was hungry, and so they said, do you want to take them on? And I said, absolutely. And luckily, it was actually a fairly easy transaction once I got them, found them a house.
Right.
And it was about 6 months after I got licensed, but I remember I was super nervous the whole time. But there was so much joy, and I felt like such a great sense of accomplishment making it to that closing
right.
table in December. And then my second deal was actually a family member. And I don't remember who my third was. I should look that up. But,
I find it interesting, though, because I've never heard that before. And you mentioned it, and you mentioned, I guess you were introduced by this agent sending you your first deal. The handoff. I bet most agents will run it into the ground or burn the bridge and not at least say, you know what, I don't think this is going to work. Let me refer them to someone I know. I'd rather them get the deal than just somebody else.
And maybe, and maybe as they can get a small referral fee. I mean, that's why it's so important to build those relationships. I really think you should look at building relationships and that referral network as another source of revenue for you in the real estate business, because it can be so big.
Yeah.
Whether it's a buyer or a listing that you're struggling with, you never know, another agent may have a different idea or concept to get that sold, and instead of that, reflecting negatively on you, you connect them, and then they can, pay you a referral fee.
There's no doubt about it. I've been in sales pretty much my adult life, which is probably about as old as you are. Almost. But the the turnover, to turn them over to someone else. I remember back in my early sales days, I was probably a little bit younger, about when you started real estate, about that 24, 25-year-old time frame. And at that time, cellular phones were growing. They were, obviously they were giving them away, the analog phones, and they were just going to digital phones and so forth. And there was areas of the country where there was no stores. So they would do whatever they could to get people out into those areas to get handsets in their hands. And so we were traveling around, going to county fairs, more or less, or really any show, but the county fairs were always biggest. And I remember sitting there at just a pop-up table, cell phones, activating cell phones, because you would do it literally over the phone. There was no laptop there with Wi-Fi. But there would be times where you'd be sitting there talking to a customer and then trying to subtly close them, and they just wouldn't budge. And having a buddy of mine who was part-time, we were at a lot of shows together. Sometimes you just step back and let that other person come in, and they ask him or they answer a question a little bit differently, or the personality.
It's a new idea. Kind of someone else is telling them that.
Yeah, reinforcing basically what you told them. Maybe say it in a different way, and it's amazing, but it does work. There's no doubt about it. Especially in the years I did in the call center when I initially started getting there's some times where yeah, you need just someone to do a second voice. I mean, they just got to come in and just say, and go over and try to get some of those objections out of there. I have Ryan Serhant's book here. Have you read that?
I have.
You have read that one. Okay, so we'll keep that copy. But did you read the first one?
Yes, I'm a big Ryan Serhant.
You are right. I'm a big Ryan Serhant fan. I love his book because when you're reading it, you can hear him talking and so forth.
And he's so encouraging and motivating.
Yes, very positive individual. What are some of the things that you, is it podcast, books? Where do you get some of your energy from?
Podcast, books. I made it a point a couple of years ago. We're in the car a lot as real estate agents, so I love a good music jam out. But I told myself, when I am driving or have a full day of showings, to pop on like encouraging or a business podcast or even sometimes personal development. And I always find myself on those days when I turn that on, I always feel like a different person at the end of the day. I'm like, wow. Or sometimes you learn a lesson in that and you're like, wow, I can't wait to implement that. So
yes.
Podcast, I love a good book, on occasion. And, also too, like if you're feeling down, I've built some incredible relationships with other realtors and just saying, hey, let's grab coffee and kind of re-energizing each other.
I find a lot of energy in it. When I'm, I've become a podcast junkie now. I wasn't doing it before. I turned off the political talk show stuff, and I basically totally shut that off. And I went to, now I'm popping between different podcasts and can't wait till the next person puts their show in. It's amazing some of the people you're basically introduced to. And I think it actually, to me, when you're sitting down with people and just talking, it's like, hey, like we are here today. Oh, I heard this great thing on this podcast. One of the stories I've been telling people lately, the same agent, EXP agent out there was interviewing a gentleman from Montana, and he had gone viral on a YouTube video talking about what's it like to move to Montana. He was a real estate agent, went from so-so to now he's like Mr. Montana, the guy to call. He had a YouTube video go to, when I looked at it, had almost 1.7 million views.
Wow.
So he's probably over 2 million views, but all these people from California, but he just, it gives you something more positive to talk about.
Exactly. I was going to say it adds a positive mindset to you when you're listening or being encouraged or thinking, sometimes you hear somebody share something and you're like, oh, I could do that, but put my own spin on it, right? And so then you get encouraged and you feel you have these rush of new ideas, and it just changes your mindset so much than if you're listening to all of the political stuff or the news that's so negative or things like that.
Yep, for sure. You went right to Navy Homes. You told the story because you went over, you were looking for a little bit of work and you started as their admin. Was there a connection there? And I mean, now you've been there 7 years, which is kind of rare for an agent to, you see them every couple of years move to a different broker because of money or whatever. What is it at Navy to Navy that's you've made home there?
Yeah, so I was a military brat. We kind of have discussed that. And Navy to Navy was formed to give back and help the military family. Obviously, we don't only help them. We help everyone, but we do have a special place in our heart for the military and really all community heroes, which we deem first responders, teachers, clergy, and medical professionals. And so I really, found I love that, and so I wanted to also give back because I've been there. I've been through PCS moves. I've been through all of the military lifestyle. I wanted to kind of connect with people like that and give back to them.
Well, it's definitely a community for that. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, the builder that we work with here, I mean, the amount of veterans, whether they're retiring, going to retire, or being transferred in is tremendous. So there's a tremendous market for that. Do you find, because I have to ask this question because obviously the Navy to Navy, sometimes you actually think, does that actually deter versus being like a neutral name like Keller Williams?
Sure. We do get that sometimes. Like I was doing a trade show one time and someone's like, well, why not Army to Army? But I mean, I can tell you I've helped Army people, I've helped Marine Corps, I've helped, Air Force, we obviously don't discriminate. We do get that question, but then we always end up, it always kind of, people laugh at it, afterwards. So, I mean, I would say yes, maybe, but then once we kind of break down that barrier.
Now, I was reading the Realtor magazine,
Yes.
and I had let me flip the page here. So so it says, and I don't know if this is it started Homes for Heroes.
Yeah, so I did not start Homes for Heroes.
Yeah.
I know I've gotten that question a lot, but that is, that is how they wrote it. I did not write that specifically. So,
Yeah.
But Navy to Navy, we became an affiliate, one of the first affiliates in Jacksonville, Florida, with Homes for Heroes. So Homes for Heroes is a national organization. So if you are a community hero, military, like I said, military, medical, first responder, teacher, clergy, and you are looking to buy or sell anywhere in the U.S., not just Jacksonville, Florida, I can connect you with a Homes for Heroes agent. And essentially what we do with Homes for Heroes is we rebate back 25% of our commission as a thank you to those heroes, whether you are buying or selling. So Navy to Navy became a part of that in 2014, still going strong. Almost 7 years later, we're super, super proud and humbled to be aligned with that, with that program.
So for those mentioned there that you serve, they want to become part of it. Can they just come to you and say, "Hey, I'm a Jacksonville fireman. I want to participate in the Homes for Heroes," or do they need to contact Homes for Heroes first?
If they're looking to buy or sell, they just can call me or any of the Navy to Navy agents, and we can help them. And then if they're not in Jacksonville, we can connect you to a Homes for Heroes. And if you're a realtor wanting to be a part of it, I can definitely share more information and put you in contact with people higher up in Homes for Heroes.
Okay. All right, we're going to transition a little bit here to the Jordan Group.
Okay.
So here you went from admin to part-time admin, doing some property management, agent, and then eventually you make your graduation to where you're like, I'm just going full-time agent. I've got enough deals going here. I'm diving in. When do you start the vision of the Jordan Group?
So it came on probably after I had been a couple years. I don't remember exactly, but after I had been, probably 3 years later, you start hearing a lot about branding and branding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to create, sort of like the team, but I knew I didn't want to go out. Like I wasn't looking to be this huge team leader. Just not quite my style. But I knew
you like
I
the
got
self-managed
to that.
part of it.
Yes. But I got to that point where I knew I needed help. And so I started, I brought on a transaction coordinator in, I think it is 19. We've had the typical hire, fire, let go kind of. So a couple years ago, I had to break it all down to kind of be where I am now. But I did bring on a couple of years ago, I think 2, a transaction coordinator, and I hired a marketing girl. She is actually a family member to help me build my website and everything because I really wanted to start branding myself as a realtor with Navy to Navy. But I knew I was kind of going to be growing based on the business I was getting. And so I wanted to build kind of the Jordan Group. So it started as myself, and then my TC and the marketing girl. And then in the end of really all of 18, my husband started asking like, "Hey, I think I want to come."
What was he doing before?
He was still at Mayo at the time.
Oh, okay.
So he was still in the medical field, and he was like, I feel like I kind of want to come in and jump in this real estate thing. And I said, absolutely not. We can be married or we can work together. I don't think we can do both. And so I shot him down for a long time. And then at the end of 18, a couple of doors had closed and new things had opened. So one of actually our PMs at Navy to Navy, she was a military spouse and she got orders to Singapore. And so the door opened. We needed a new property manager. So he was really not happy with where things were. He was in corporate America, the rat race of that. And so we were like, wow, maybe this door opened for a reason. And so I said, okay, if this is what you want to do, let's do it. So he studied, he took his exam, and he started as a PM in the fall of 18. And then his intent was to help me with some sales because, again, I was kind of getting to that point where I was like, I don't know how much more I can handle just myself. And so he started at the end of 18 in PM and helping me. And then actually as of this year, and then I had let go of my transaction coordinator at the time. So we haven't had one. And then I hired an actual more formal marketing girl, and she's been with us for, I think, almost 2 years. And that's been super great because when you're in the business, you don't have time to create the content that continues to get you business. And that's just not my specialty, right? My specialty is building relationships and knowing about the transaction, not marketing. So I alleviated that. I hired last year, actually, in my best year ever. I did not have a TC. I finally just hired one in January, and she is amazing. I only wish I would have found her sooner. And this year, my husband had left in March the property management role, so he is now formally 100% full-time sales with me and overseeing kind of our investment side of the Jordan Group.
Right.
So I am really excited to where we're going to go.
So you thought it might clash. How are we doing?
Yes, so I thought it would, but we've actually been doing really great, and it is really cool because, you know, it's our business. It's our business. It's our goals. It's our future for our family, and so it's not as difficult as I thought it would be. You know, it's really cool, and it's a cool kind of dynamic. I mean, there are some struggles, but
what are some of the things you guys kind of?
It can probably be viewed as a strength and a weakness, but we are both very different in our work. So, like, I'm more serious. He's more goofy. He's
is that most guys? I don't know.
I'm more serious. Like, I'm more serious. I'm more of the planner. Like, let's break out the spreadsheets, the goal boards, you know, things like that. Let's write it all down. He's more like kind of go with the flow. And so I'm sure you can imagine like how that goes. But ultimately, you know, I think it's great. Strengths and weaknesses, you know, so where I'm more uptight and stressed and, you know, things can bother me, he kind of chills me out and says, it's going to be okay, you know.
When it comes to like the kind of more bigger decisions, maybe a marketing campaign or so forth, does he just let you take it?
Yeah.
He lets you go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Things are working, so he doesn't.
Some things, you know, and he knows because, you know, I've been doing this for 7 years, so he has, I will say, he didn't come in completely blind because he had been listening to me for almost 5 years and hearing my, you know, phone conversations and me do things, and he's been watching me, so he didn't come in kind of cold turkey. He knew what he was, you know, getting into and a little bit about it. So he definitely knows, like, if it's bigger things or things that I don't know much about, I'm going to go ahead and leave that to you.
Have you had one of those customers where you kind of like, he's TDO'd to you, or you TDO'd that customer to him?
We do.
Kind of in a casual way, you kind of just walk the other direction, let him go.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of like our goal of where we're going is I'd like to kind of, I'm definitely more listings heavy. I still handle buyers. I love buyers. But in one of our future goals is for me to kind of shift to listings and then for him to take on some of the buyers, which he's starting to do. And now that he is really full time, he's really able, you know, to do that.
Do you have aspirations to have a handful of agents?
I don't know. I really do enjoy being in production, and I do love it, but I am sure in the future, once we have a family, you know, that will probably change a little bit. I wouldn't mind maybe in the future, you know, like 1 or 2 and just being able, but this is one reason too why I love Navy to Navy is we are such a close, tight-knit group of people, super like I feel like we're all family, and that's what I would want, you know, for those that, you know, were to come on.
You know, over the years, you know, 15 years of being in mortgages and really the last 4.5 or so really being out in what they call retail, out entertaining you guys from a loan officer to an agent. And I've met agents that are obviously part of teams almost religiously from the standpoint of coming in like a job every day. They need that. They need to be told to come in whatever, and we're going to do this as a team, and then the leaning on each other or pressure that a team can create to get people to, you know, move towards their ultimate goal. And then obviously agents who are just so independent, they love just going out there and getting it for themselves. They don't want to have anything to deal with other people. Where do you see yourself? Because you're kind of like in between.
Yeah, I would say
I don't count your husband as one of those.
Yeah. So I do. I mean, I love a good routine. I definitely thrive off of a routine, but I like to be able to do my own thing as well. So, you know, like you will not ever find me getting up and cold calling at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning for 2 hours.
Right.
That's just not my style. And so I would never want, you know, I would never enforce that, you know, on a team or something like that. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of very in the middle. Like, I love a schedule. I love to follow a good checklist. I love to follow a good system. But some days, you know, you need a little more relaxation. Right.
There's no doubt. I mean, you know, I've been doing this 15 years. I probably could apply to be a manager at some places, but I don't want. I have too much drive myself that when someone doesn't have the drive that I have, they're not in here at 8:15 in the morning. I'm like, dude, half the day's gone by.
Yeah.
You know, where are you at? So,
and I don't want to feel like I have to be a dictator of other people. I'd rather much more just encourage and help, help you get better, but I don't want to have to like micromanage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say we have a recent Florida State grad listening to the podcast right now. They've heard your story. They've had some interest in it. What are some things that you would tell them they need to consider before jumping into this business?
To enter real estate?
Yeah.
I am a big proponent of what is your why. So people have written me all 7 years of being in the business. I'm thinking about getting into real estate. And my question is always why? Why do you want to get into it? And I'm very blunt about it. A lot of times people think I'm going to get into real estate. I want those big commission checks, right? To me, if you're driven by the money, you will not last long.
Which is common in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. If that's your sole motivation. Yeah.
It's so much more than that. And so I always make sure to help them understand what is your reasoning behind this? What do you want out of this business? So just really dig that, it's a personal question. What is the driving force behind that? And if it is a true, honest motivation, I think you can take this business really far.
Right. When do you look at agents that are coming in the office today, the new agents, someone just getting started, they've went and got their license, they've signed on with Navy to Navy. What do you find is probably one of their biggest misconceptions of the business?
Let's see. Maybe that you can kind of just jump in. I know I was sharing this kind of actually at the panel last week that I spoke on is, it's okay when you're new. Remember I said that in the beginning, I didn't know all of the answers. And so to me, people are now seeking you for a huge purchase in their life. And if you don't know, it's okay. But make sure you take the time to learn, set out days for you to take education classes, partner up with an agent where you can ask questions instead of just jumping right in and thinking that you know it all, because you don't. You'll never know everything in this business. I still learn new things every single day.
You can't learn it all. I mean,
right.
Of all the different loans, I'm like you. Because there's always that one out of 1,000, 2,000 customers that they need some certain type of loan.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, let me research that. Let me call someone who's smarter than me, because I don't have the time in the day-to-day minutia of the 99% of the loans that we're doing for that 1/100th of a percent loan. I don't have time to clog my brain with that and how all the inner workings.
And things are always changing in this industry. On the mortgages side, too, they're always changing the way things are done, contracts, this or that. And so I think, sometimes people come in like, oh, I'm licensed now, and they kind of have like this demeanor about them, and like we've seen it kind of as seasoned agents. You're dealing with a new agent on the other side, and they're just kind of flat out rude, act like they know it all. Don't be one of those agents, please. It's okay.
Right.
I actually admire very much the agents that on the other side are like, hey, I'm new. Like, is this right? Just being upfront and honest and being open to, someone that is more seasoned critiquing you or, helping you get better.
I think it's, you mentioned that another popular agent I was interviewing mentioned the ego part of it, and how there's just some of these people just want to tell you how much they know, and in reality, I find a lot of those people that babble on or so assertive that, like you were mentioning there, oh, I know how this is supposed to go, really aren't actually productive. They really don't have the at-bats
right.
that, or at least recently. They may have had it 10 years ago, because I think the perception is it's that older agent that's just there. They're going to the classes, yeah, but what they did 15 years ago versus what you're doing now, which kind of leads me into you've started this process in 2014-15 time frame. We haven't had, there's been talk of recession and that sort of thing, but we've been slowly moving along, and all of a sudden this recent last 90, 120 days roughly, where it's just gotten crazy. Yeah, and getting all these offers and so forth. What are you doing you and your husband or the Jordan Group, what are you guys doing differently today that maybe you weren't doing 6 months ago?
Just as far as the business in general?
Right.
Oh boy. Well, I will say, so we've always kind of, when we first start working with buyers, we always bring them in for what we call a buyer consultation. We have a huge informative buyers packet, and we go.
So you don't just meet them at the house that they want to go see and
No.
call for a pre-qual while you're on your way home?
No.
Okay.
No, not me. We always like to, bring them in, get to know them, and I think too that face-to-face meeting really helps build that relationship and kind of breaks down any walls. I think to me it's just weird to just show up and say at the door, "Hey, I'm Bailey,"
Right.
So bring them in, really answer line by line, because there's so many facets of the real estate transaction, and I have found when you meet with your customer up front, at least on the buying side, and you kind of go through what it looks like, the timeline, what the loan process looks like,
Needs
home
and wants
inspection, everything.
Mhm.
You find yourself not being bothered by them, and not that it's a bother, but I mean, they're not calling you every day, okay, now what? Okay, now what? We have a full detailed timeline and everything like that.
Mhm.
So bringing them in and really going through that process. Now we 100% still do that, and that after we meet that day is when we send them home with some homework, and the homework is the pre-qual. Mm-hmm. So, but now we bring them in, and one thing we add is just going to keep it real for you. Don't get too attached to any home, and it's going to take probably 5 to 6 offers before you get one accepted in this market. So setting that expectation up front is so huge right now in this market, because if you don't, they're going to think it's you. And that's not really the case. We all know, if you do work with buyers out there right now, it is tough. And so setting that expectation to your customer, that it's not them, it's not you, it's the market. I guess essentially it's kind of it is them, depending upon what they're offering. Right. But setting expectations up front.
This is, imagine in your business is so frustrating. And the agents are doing this on a daily basis because that's why you're doing what you're doing. You're doing your homework up front, taking that hour or whatever over a cup of coffee and talk about their needs and wants and timeline and so forth. Where you go out there and they say, "Hey, I saw this home. Take me over to see it." So you think that's what they want, and so if they don't make an offer on that home, maybe you find a home that's similar to that. And say, "Oh, this one's similar." And then you get there and you're like, "Okay, all right, are we ready to, let's make an offer. Let's make an offer." Like, "Well, we don't like it because it's on a preserve," or whatever the reason is, right? Or the color's wrong. Something's not right. It's not close enough to the school that they want to go to, or it's too far from the grocery store. They want to be able to ride their golf cart to it, right? And it's like, oh my goodness, I just wasted hours upon hours looking for homes. I found a home I thought they would like, but because I didn't take the time up front to find out that they wanted to be in a community, it had to happen where they had to have a 3-car garage or whatever it is. And they didn't take the time that was a must-have versus, an additional, whatever you want to call it, the type of thing. It can be extremely frustrating. You're primarily dealing, obviously, with a lot of veterans, whether they're active duty or a veteran. From that standpoint, and the discussion we have, and actually my show, it's coming out this Friday. Unfortunately, after your show's not going to be out by Friday, but we talk about the buyers and the listing agents and having the veteran knowing they're getting a VA loan, whether it's 100% or maybe they are putting a little bit of money down. And do you find, my belief is the older agents have a negative attitude.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of myths, and people have a lot of untruths about the VA loan in their mind. So it is very difficult right now for VA to compete because, one, we're seeing a lot of cash offers. So a lot of people from California, New York, real estate is more expensive there. So they're selling, if they own homes there, coming down, and they have, they get here and they're like, wow, I can buy a 3,000 square foot home for $400K, obviously depending upon the area. Right. And that was like a third of the penthouse that they just sold in New York, right? And so they're putting cash. Or I'm also seeing a lot of people putting down a significant amount. Like recently I had a listing, it was like for $230, and the buyer put down like $120, and then just to leverage the use of a loan, they did that. So a lot of times, sometimes when you do put a lot of money down, it can waive the appraisal. So sellers are like, wow, and it also shows they have money, they're probably highly qualified, it's going to be an easy process.
Right.
So it is very hard for VAs to obviously compete with that. But I also spoke about this at the panel last week, is there are, other facets to the offer. That right now is, as agents, you need to educate yourself on the VA and really know kind of where, what can circumvent, that checkbox of a VA, whether it's additional binder or a heavy binder up front, additional binder after the inspection, depending upon the age of the home, maybe the buyer buying it as is with the right to inspect, only mandating, repairs that the lender can mandate for, like WDO and things like
Sure.
that. If they have cash, put that down. Offsetting, maybe paying, we're seeing this kind of more and more frequently. The buyer taking on some of the seller's closing costs, title search, title insurance, those are two popular ones we're seeing. So, they just have to get creative. They have to get creative with what they're offering and how to kind of overcome if they are putting zero down to make themselves still look strong.
Good. We can definitely talk about this. I definitely would like to have one of our days where we do just talk about loans, have you back in on that perspective. But the one question, which is one of those old wives' tales, is the VA appraisal. They say is tougher, because the veteran, the VA appraiser is looking for those things, water damage and that sort of thing that the VA loan does not like to have, versus someone putting money down on a conventional loan. They can say, "Oh, you're putting enough money down. Not a big deal. It's only a few $1,000s." But the actual value from a VA versus conventional, have you experienced any difference?
I have not, to be completely honest. I think that is just some myth that got started somewhere. I mean, I've not been in the business 30 years. I'm only on year 7. I have had probably less than 5 appraisals in my career be low for VA, and I know one specifically, I knew it was so wrong. We fought it, and it was low by about $25,000, and I got over $25,000 back on my appeal. Again, knowing your information, being educated, being able to come back and say, this is just not accurate, and showing, proof in the data. Even recently with, the way prices are going up, knock on wood, I have not seen a huge issue with low.
I've actually experienced several situations. I had a loan the other day, came in $20,000 higher than the asking price. I had one over in Clay County, same thing. They didn't think it was. I think it was the listing agent. The price was in the 240s. They actually overpaid for it by $15,000. The appraisal actually came in about $4,000 or $5,000 higher than that. So they actually bought it undervalued. So now those weren't VA appraisals, but I personally too, I wanted you to just say it on the record, because I have never experienced where I could say, oh, that VA appraiser gave a lower value than a conventional appraiser would have. I've never seen such a thing.
And then I hear also, oh, they take too long to close. One of the lenders I work with often, he can get a VA loan closed, and right now it's a little harder because everyone is so bombarded.
The appraisal time, turnaround time from getting start to finish done.
Back, I would say pre-2020, he closed a VA loan for me in 23 days. Yeah. So it's people have been fed misinformation.
Big time. There's no, and I've said it on my shows before when we talked about it, as a lender. Now, because when I first started, we didn't have to do VA loans. I started Quicken Loans the first 3 years before the collapse of 2008. They didn't even offer VA and FHA loans. But when someone is a veteran, and the only thing I'm worried about is the credit score, and then of course, obviously, do they make enough money to support them? But the one thing great about the VA, it's the most forgiving loan. They allow the higher debt ratios. Someone's had a boo-boo in their credit, they're the most forgiving.
It's an awesome loan program.
Yeah. So when I'd rather have the VA client personally. And I think also as an agent, I think you probably agree with me. Don't assume just because they're a veteran, they're not going to put any money down. Right. Because there are incentives for them to put a little bit of money down. They save quite a bit, especially if they haven't paid the funding fee. For that standpoint.
Absolutely.
I've already asked you all about. Here's my big question.
Oh, great.
We talked about NEFAR.
Yeah.
Okay. If NEFAR called you over, maybe they're having a big event, and said, Bailey, we want you to speak as a young, successful agent a young successful agent with experience, because you started so young, a lot younger than I wonder what the average agent is, probably like 35, 40. You already got 10 years on that person before they even started or plus in the industry. But Nifar invites you over and says, we want you to speak on the trials and tribulations that you've had as an agent coming through and looking back, with 2020 in reverse. What are some things you would have done differently?
Sure. So I would probably, one thing that I have consistently and I still need to be even better about in my business, I think in this industry, is follow-up. So I know in the beginning, like I said earlier, I was really hungry, and then I kind of pictured myself as a tumbleweed. So I started going, and then it just kind of tumbleweeded. And so I will say, I was like meeting people, I was doing open houses. For other agents, that's how I got a lot of my business, is if I didn't have listings, I would say, hey, can I do an open house to get buyers? Maybe the nosy neighbor came over,
right.
And they were like, I'm thinking about selling. I mean, seriously, and
right.
That's what I tell new agents now is, there's so many ways to get business out there. And so I would meet people and I'd get names, and then, as one person back then, I'd get busy. And I remember the time where right before kind of Jordan Group was born, I had at the time about 7 to 8 deals going, and I was like, wow, so people I had recently met or had reached out to me, sadly I was letting them fall through the cracks because at that time I was just at capacity of what I could do as a newer agent.
Right.
So following up kind of systems, creating better systems in an earlier.
So what are you doing differently today? Because you didn't do that earlier. What are you doing today?
Well, I've created systems that are help me with follow up. I've built I've gotten into like my CRM. I've created schedules for follow up with customers. Because my business is fully Sphere referral and past customers now.
Right.
So I'm very big into reaching out, staying in touch, sending handwritten notes, doing pop-bys, just really staying in front of my past customers, so that they always know when they think of real estate, they think of Bailey Jordan, and then getting, referrals from that. But back then, it is what it is. I'm just excited to have business. So I'm not really thinking about, this week I'm following up with these people because I'm just stuck in the thick of like helping the people that I have. So I would also probably say is not to get discouraged. This business can be discouraging. Sometimes, if a deal falls apart, you lose a customer, they decide not to buy, they're just going to rent after you worked with them for 5 months. A listing doesn't sell. Back then the market again is very different than it is now. And I remember I used to I take a lot of things personal because I am a people person. So I like to please everyone. I want everyone to be happy. And so if something didn't work out with the deal, I would take it very personal.
Right.
So, just keep going. Kind of, they always say, like, fail forward.
Right.
So don't let the no's or the disappointments get you down.
I think of just a person who cares. You care and you're disappointed. I mean, there's no doubt I feel the same way. If you ultimately care, you may, not be best friends with these people. You're representing them, but when you are representing them and you are you and you care about that, you want to get that ball to the goal line, and then when it doesn't get there, it's discouraging, and then you have to review, what did I do something wrong?
Right.
Is there something
Especially
I could have done
when you
differently?
poured everything you have and all this time, energy, effort, helping them, and then they're like, oh, we're going to go a different direction, or oh, I think we're just like, going to rent instead of this. You're like, oh, all this time, and you're like, did I do something? Was I not serving you the best I could? So, again, that goes back to personalities and things, and don't let, that negative,
get you down. I totally agree with you from the standpoint that I have now with, I'll be 51 next week, and I look back, and my wife's a little bit younger, and I say, you can't get all wound up about it. There's some things you can, and you just yell at the wall, whatever. Okay, it's over, move on. Things happen for a reason. But how many times I can look back in my life where what you mentioned, you used the analogy, one door closed, another door opened, and it happens all the time. All of a sudden, because you did treat those people with great respect, and now they want to rent, all of a sudden, who knows, 3 months later, 3 years later, all of a sudden they referred you to somebody.
Right.
So it gets back to you, because you give, you will get. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm a football official, so I call these my 2-minute warnings.
Okay.
These are just off the wall type questions just to finish up here. Is it more important who you know or what you know?
Oh, I have to say at this point in my business, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm. And you're a big person on education, getting to know what you know.
I do think that is a very 50-50 question in my opinion, because I think even if you have great connections and you get referrals from great connections, if you don't know what the crap you're doing, they're going to fall. They're going to go to someone else. They're going to, if you can't service them well or know what you're doing, you're not going to be able to carry. But it's
who you know gets you to the batter's box.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for you to show what
exactly.
you know. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit, you've leaned more to the listing side, but you're still doing both. If you had a choice today, for the rest of your real estate career, do you want to list or do you want to buy? And that's the only thing you could do. What would you choose?
List.
You would list. I call it setting traps. You set out all the traps, and then you sit back and wait for people to build
I will add, the reason I'm listing heavy now is because I'm harvesting the seeds that I planted years ago. So when I first got started, it's easier. I saw in open houses, got a lot of buyers, they bought, now they've had kids, they're upsizing, they're downsizing, so I'm harvesting those seeds.
Sure.
But I'm not above buyers at all. I love them, but that is why the last couple of years I've been listing heavy.
You're going out on the town for the evening just for some fun. Jumbo shrimp or a Jaguars game?
Jaguar game.
Jaguar game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think of the new quarterback? What do you think of Tim Tebow?
I'm excited. I prefer college just because I think there's more camaraderie and it's kind of exciting to root for your school or alumni. But I do enjoy NFL since I live in Jacksonville. Go Jags! I'm not a diehard fan, but I am excited. I mean, hopefully, maybe this will be our year.
All right. I don't know about the Reddit. Someone says it's going to be 2 or 3 years yet. We don't have quite all the horses yet.
But hopefully, it will be anything better than last year.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. There'll be some more people in the seats for sure. What's on the Jordan's travel bucket list?
Well, we went to Greece a couple years ago. We've been dying to go back to Greece.
All the many places. It's so interesting. We all want to do that, right? We go someplace with such a good time. There's millions of other places we could go. Yeah. And we all want to go back to the place where we've already been.
Portugal is on our list as well. I really want to go to Lisbon, Portugal. Yeah. I'd love to go to the Swiss Alps, and I really want to go hang out in a pub in Ireland.
Okay. So a lot of Europe there.
Yes.
If you had a dream career, what would that be?
I don't know. I mean, I really do enjoy and love what I'm doing now. I really don't know.
We'll let you think about that.
All the time.
Travel all the time. So, those listening to the show, I know my man Daniel here has put up your Facebook and Instagram stuff because I preloaded that on there, so it's been on the screen. But someone just wants to reach out to you. What is the best way to get to hold of you?
Probably my direct cell phone number. It is 678-447-1829. I am also obviously very active on Instagram, so shoot me a message. I do have a personal page and a business page, which they're both linked on each other. So if you look up either one of them, you can find either one, and I'm very active on both, so I will get your message.
So the audio version of the podcast will be going out here in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we got Facebook Live today. Please like and comment below. Let us know if there's something different. Is there something else I should have asked Bailey? The next time she's here, we've got her on because I definitely would love to have her come on, especially when we talk about the veteran VA loans and so forth, and really dig deep because I think we need to put out a positive energy about it and defeat these people with these I call them old wives' tales is my phrase on it. So from that standpoint, but please like and share below. Subscribe to the podcast. They're going to try to have a show every Tuesday and Thursday. You're going to have the best of the best. And on Friday, I have my team in here talking about loans, more of a circle event with 3 or 4 of us. And you're just talking about loans in general, what's going on. And obviously, VA is always brought up from that standpoint because it is one of our favorite. And we live in Jacksonville. There's just a ton of veterans and active duty coming in and out. So it's a big part of our business. So, Bailey, appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you.
so fun.